Okay, so I have now looked at Cars Racer-Rama and Cars 3. I'm doing this in a very strange order, I know, but today I'm looking at Cars 2. Now, I know some of you were still not happy with how I viewed Cars 3, and with a lot of you defending it. I thought I'd give Cars 2 a go, and you'll be pleased to know that I actually had quite a positive experience playing this one. So, Cars 2, the video game, was released in 2011, pretty much on every platform at the time, including PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, Windows, Wii, the DS, the 3DS, the PSP, and even on iOS. Although the iOS version is like a different game, so we won't get into that. Wait. Anyway, this game was developed by Avalanche Software, who also developed Cars 3, and also Hogwarts Legacy, and a few other games. The version that I am playing today is for the Xbox 360. Now, I've actually owned this game for like 6 or 7 years. They gave it away on Games with Gold some period of time ago, and I never really played it when I claimed it. I just claimed it for the sake of it. And then I thought, oh, I literally already own this, so I've pulled out my old Xbox One to obviously play the 360 version on, and sat and played through a good like 7 or 8 hours. So first off, let's talk gameplay. Fundamentally, this is the same as Cars 3 in terms of how the gameplay works, except it actually works. The drifting and the arrows on the track that you drift on to get boost are still present. There's a few small little gaps you can go through on 2 wheels to get additional boost, and the tracks have shortcuts, except they're just so much less obnoxious than they are on the Cars 3 maps. If you reach the maximum amount of held boost, you still get that very large, long boost that destroys enemies in your way if you double tap the boost button. So fundamentally, it's very similar to Cars 3, except this one is just better. It just has more character to it, it doesn't feel rushed. It's just better in every way. One issue with Cars 3 is that when the cars are moving, and the game's telling you you're going at like 90 to like 150 miles an hour, you feel like you're going at about 30, and it looks like it too. But in this game, that issue isn't quite as present. It feels like you're going faster when you're actually going fast. Which, now I've said out loud, probably sounds a bit ridiculous, but for a character who likes to say, "I am speed," really? I would like to feel like I am speed. This game is also very linear, much like Cars 3. The THQ Cars games were obviously more open world and featured a lot more collectibles, whereas the Avalanche Cars games do not really have that so much.
No.
Now, whilst this game may be lacking a proper open world segment, it does have a lot of game modes in there. Now, this game really is a Mario Kart clone. Realistically, it's obviously a Cars movie tie-in, but the theme of it, it's really a Mario Kart game. You've got your races for power-ups, you've got your battle modes. It's clear as day where the inspiration comes from, that's all I'm saying. However, the fact that it's a Mario Kart clone, it's genuinely a strength of the game. Obviously the movie was about spies and action, so it really fits the game well for this jump from the open world THQ games to what we have now. It makes sense. The races are fun, the maps are well laid out and well designed, and as the game goes on, it gets progressively more challenging, in a way that's fair, not in a way that's just absolutely broken like the hard AI on Cars 3. The races that you compete in when you do have power-ups are also good fun. They can be frustrating at times because the physics is a little bit goofy, especially when you get blown up by the large laser and you get thrown up into the air. Sometimes you land and keep going, sometimes you just land on your roof and it respawns you. It can just be a little unpredictable, which sometimes makes for a little bit of a frustrating experience. Whilst the first Cars game primarily takes place in the fictional town of Radiator Springs, Cars 2 is more of a globe-trotting adventure with locations in Japan, London, and one location based on Monaco. The world designs for these within the tracks they're set on are actually really good. Now don't get me wrong, playing the London track as someone who lives in England, it is not even remotely close to being the quintessential English experience, but traditionally I suppose it is.
Come on, who are you then?
Ronnie Pickering!
Who?
Ronnie Pickering!
Who?
Ronnie Pickering!
Who the fuck's that?
Yeah, me!
Anyway, my point is, the level design is actually pretty good. No complaints there, really. Now, I know I complained a lot in the previous two games about the voice acting, but in Cars 2, genuinely it's not actually that bad. The original cast from the film doesn't come back, but the voice actors they do have in this game are actually pretty good. Lightning McQueen, for the most part, sounds like Owen Wilson, and Finn McMissile, again, for the most part, sounds like Michael Caine.
I failed you. You trusted me.
Now, graphically, I know with Cars 3, I tried to avoid talking about it too much because the Nintendo Switch version that I did play was obviously not the most graphically impressive version of the game there is, but I would safely say that Cars 2 is probably the best looking Cars game out of the whole series. Avalanche worked very closely with Pixar developing this game as they did for the Toy Story 3 game, and it does show when translating into the visuals. Whilst it obviously doesn't look as picturesque as the Pixar movie itself does, it still holds up really well. Now, I'm sure the Nintendo Wii version of this game probably looked a lot uglier than the 360 and PS3 versions, but the fact that the Switch version in 2017 of Cars 3 looks worse than this 2011 game for the 360, it's baffling, really. But overall, the models of the cars look really great, the worlds look really nice. I didn't really experience any lag playing the game either. There was no major performance issues, so overall it's been a really good time. Now, when I played Cars 3, I also did complain that the game did not have that much of a story. Now, Cars 2 doesn't really either. It does loosely follow the plot of the film, but aside from the odd little cutscene here and there, you don't really see too much. But to be honest with you, it doesn't matter in this game because the mission-to-mission playing, it's fun. You're not really too concerned about the story when you're just playing a Mario Kart game with a Cars skin on it. Now, before I begin moaning about my few gripes with the game, one other major thing I do have to compliment on this game is the soundtrack. Oh my god. Now, most of the Cars games' soundtracks are all actually pretty good, but this one, it just hits really hard for some reason. The Cars 2 film score itself goes hard anyway, so it's good to see that that translates into the game. There's an Italian themed one in particular which gets reused in Cars 3, but oh my god, it's so good. Now, unfortunately, I do have to moan a little bit, which, honestly, I'm sure you're all quite surprised I haven't moaned more. Cars 2 has a game mode where you basically fight off waves of enemies, but I just think it's kind of boring, I'm not gonna lie. There were moments where I was driving around the maps I didn't know too well, trying to actually find the enemies. Like, the arrows were showing on my screen, I just couldn't actually locate them. And then when I did locate them, they were just like sat there, not doing anything, or were just driving into a wall, and it just felt a little bit broken. It was like it was an afterthought after they'd already developed the rest of the game, and they just threw this one in. I don't know, I could be wrong, but it just feels very shallow, and every time I saw one of these, it was just an absolute snooze fest. And then eventually, the scores got a bit hard, and I just gave up trying those game modes, to be honest with you, so... And as I already mentioned briefly earlier, the physics in this game still aren't great. There's another game mode where you have to essentially pick up these batteries so you can charge your shield so you don't get shot by the all-in-all cannon thing that's in the film. And there were several occasions where I'd like go over like an incline and I'd just completely lose control, and then my chain would be broken and then I would lose. It just gets a bit frustrating. But other than that, I don't really have any major issues with the game. Those are my two biggest complaints, which, compared to the other two, I'd say is pretty minor. Critically, the game actually did alright as well. The 360 version scored a 72 out of 100 on Metacritic, and the PS3 version scored a 74. The rest didn't fare quite as well. The Wii version got a very
Nice.
69 out of 100, and then the PC scored 65, and the lowest being the DS and 3DS versions, both scoring 58, which isn't ideal. But the main console versions of the PS3 and 360 did pretty good. The user score for the 360 version as well is pretty good at 7.5 out of 10. Not bad going at all. Now this does raise the question, is this the best Cars game? Now I know a lot of you will have a different take and a different argument for why you think your favourite is the best. I think it's hard to say because the first game is just so iconic, but is obviously, it does have its issues. And it's the same with the follow-ups for the THQ games. They're good, but they do have their issues. I know I grilled Race-O-Rama, but in hindsight it's actually not bad. Cars 3 is obviously, there's no argument, the game's the worst out of all of them, but what do you think? Anyway, that takes us to the end of our look at Cars 2, the video game. As always, thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to like the video, subscribe and tap the bell for notifications, and I will see you all in next week's video.
I never properly introduced myself. Finn McMessiah, British Intelligence.
Tow Mater, average intelligence.